President David Granger served as chairman of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, from January to July 2017. And during his tenure, he emphasized the economic, environmental, and physical security of the citizens who make up the 15 member states of the body. The Guyanese head of state placed at the top of the regional agenda our right as members of the community to citizenship, to food security and economic viability, a safe and secure existence, and the protection of our territorial integrity. Recognizing that the small states that make up the region must stand firmly together in the face of a constantly changing global environment, President Granger believes that CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, is the key to addressing these bread and butter issues for CARICOM citizens. This week on Government in Action, we will examine how foreign policy coordination, regional security coordination, and how the advancement of the CSME can contribute to food security and be a driver of a safer and more economically stable regional bloc. Effective foreign policy coordination is viewed as an important enabler for building resilience by effectively positioning CARICOM and the member states in the global arena through collaboration, cooperation, and strategic alliances, the promotion and protection of the interests of CARICOM and other small states to mitigate vulnerability, and the leveraging of resources for regional priorities. Heads of government of CARICOM continue to articulate and harmonize policies and programs to safeguard and promote the community's interests within the global environment. President Granger has attached great importance to foreign policy coordination, even as individual states within the community pursue their national interests. He believes that foreign policy coordination is one of the 4 pillars on which the Caribbean community stands. Within a current international environment that is replete with uncertainty and complexity, President Granger warned that the efficacy of the community's international advocacy could be impaired if coordinated regional positions are weakened. This strength in a unified foreign policy approach in the region, the Guyanese leader said, is demonstrated in the community's collective stance on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy. CARICOM, at the 38th Conference of Heads of Government meeting in Grenada this month, reaffirmed its collective support for the principles enshrined in international law for safeguarding territorial integrity, sovereignty, and national independence by supporting Guyana in the controversy. The President welcomed the communique issued at the close of the Heads of Government meeting, where CARICOM reiterated its firm and unequivocal support for the maintenance and preservation of Guyana's sovereignty and territorial integrity. The Heads of Government welcomed the appointment of His Excellency Dag Nylander as personal representative of the UN Secretary-General in the Good Offices process for the duration of 2017 with a strengthened mandate of mediation. He noted that if by the end of 2017 the Secretary-General concludes that significant progress has not been made toward arriving at a full agreement for the solution of the controversy, he will choose the International Court of Justice as the next means of settlement, unless the governments of Guyana and Venezuela jointly request that he refrain from doing so. They recognize the strong commitment of the Secretary-General to the process and join Guyana in acknowledging his efforts. During the closing press conference, President Granger said that Guyana has always been able to rely on the regional body on this issue.
Since the CARICOM has been established, the Caribbean has always stood behind Guyana, and we are very satisfied, not only the Caribbean, but also the Commonwealth and other countries around the world realize that the Venezuelan claim is completely absurd and spurious, and we've always been able to rely on the support of our colleagues.
The foreign minister had expressed similar sentiments while noting that Venezuela's threats cut across international laws, treaties, and sanctity, making it clear that the claim to 2/3 of the country was baseless. The community's ability to come up with a coordinated stance on international matters was also tested on the matter of internal unrest in Venezuela. Member states of the Caribbean community had to work together to arrive at a common position as it relates to the crisis in Venezuela. Maintaining solidarity and unity of purpose and following deliberations, the CARICOM member states in their declared position in the communique issued at the close of this year's Heads of Government meeting reaffirmed their guiding principles of adherence to the rule of law, respect for human rights and democracy, as well as for the fundamental principles of non-intervention and non-interference in the internal affairs of states.
The Caribbean community cannot cling to an obsolete model of insularity in light of these international changes. The mirage of 15 airlines, 15 cricket teams, 15 defense forces, 15 embassies in the capitals of the world might mesmerize a few sentimental romantics, but could deplete the treasuries of our states. The community challenged by the constantly changing international situation, must redouble its efforts to ensure a more safe society for our citizens, more stable economies for our countries, deeper solidarity, and a more secure hemisphere.
In a meeting ahead of the specially called consultation of foreign ministers at the headquarters of the Organization of American States held on May 31, 2017, a draft declaration on behalf of CARICOM member states was presented by the Bahamas Foreign Minister Darren Henfield, where CARICOM's commitment to the principles of non-intervention and non-interference in sovereign states was emphasized. The need for all parties to hold constructive dialogue and a peaceful outcome to the problems in Venezuela were reiterated. Since that time, CARICOM leaders have worked to refine and reaffirm their position, and President Granger, speaking on the sidelines of the heads meeting in Grenada, noting that the region must remain a zone of peace.
We hope that the Venezuelan people could return to full democratic rule and full public order as quickly as possible without the interference of third states. That is our ambition. We don't want to intervene. Venezuela, I think, as you know, is one of the most mature democracies in the region. You know, it has a tradition of elections. Right now, they're undergoing some instability, and we want to make sure that at the end of the day, the Venezuelan people, you know, are satisfied with the outcome. It's peaceful, and they return to full democratic rule. Right now, there's a bit of turbulence, but we all hope that it will end sooner rather than later.
Director General of Foreign Service Ms. Audrey Waddell, speaking at the Heads of Mission Conference held in Guyana in April 2017, underscored the importance for Guyana, while a member of the Caribbean community, as an individual state to ensure that its foreign policy is crafted in a way which guarantees protection of its sovereignty. She outlined Guyana's efforts to ensure that prudent, pragmatic, and sustainable approaches to diplomacy are a valued investment given the current global environment. In the context of a small state such as Guyana with well-known and varied capacity, a strong foreign service is imperative.
The preservation of sovereignty and territorial integrity, security against external threats, and the pursuit of economic prosperity remain the central impulses. Accordingly, while the imperatives of our foreign policy have not changed, we do need, in the words of our national poet Martin Carter, to change with a change that changes, to adapt to the changing external environment. This Heads of Missions Conference avails us of an unparalleled opportunity to undertake collectively a review of the discharge of our responsibilities in order to obtain our pivotal foreign policy objectives.
Reiterating his call for the Caribbean to remain a zone of peace, the President said that security coordination must also remain a priority in this age of international terror. The Caribbean is located between the continents of North and South America, and several expressions have been used to describe it, including the soft underbelly of the United States. As such, President Granger emphasized the need for citizens of the region to be aware of its geopolitical significance. The fact that the Caribbean community is constituted by many jurisdictions scattered over thousands of square kilometers of sea space, President Granger said that makes the region susceptible to external threats.
There's a fear that we could be taken advantage of. We are susceptible to transnational crime, and as you know, in the Western Hemisphere, there has been substantial exportation of illegal narcotics. There's been gun running, there's been human trafficking, and there's been terrorism. So these risks, these threats make us a potential zone of instability. And for that reason, we need to ensure that the states of the Caribbean community are protected from the threat of instability, because individually we cannot provide the sort of the defense that big states like Brazil or Colombia would be able to provide for themselves. So unity is important. We have to work together. And also we have to make sure that the Caribbean is a zone of peace, and we have to make sure that the bigger states recognize their responsibility to protect our security.
The CARICOM is part of the Caribbean Basin Security Initiative and other programs within the region. However, the outgoing chair pointed out that finance and other factors have led to some of the agencies created over a decade ago collapsing. President Granger emphasized the need for countries in the region to share information and intelligence about persons moving throughout the jurisdictions, the need for better integration among the police forces and intelligence services within the framework of a transnational organization. President Granger said there is no way a single state within the regional grouping can effectively track the movement of terrorists in and out of the region. Therefore, information sharing is mandatory.
We need to develop the assets, for example, surveillance. We need to have persons trained, and we need to develop links with international organizations. But I would say that over the last 10 years, we've learned a lot of lessons, and the structures are there. We need to add meat, we need to add flesh to those structures to make sure there are sufficient people trained, and that the means of transmitting information, are improved. So we are in a good place. We have a high degree of trust with the people in the metropolitan countries with whom we have to deal.
Upon his assumption of the chairmanship of CARICOM, President Granger promised to work with his regional counterparts to promote the establishment of the economic basis for the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, and integration, the deepening of which is expected to boost the economic well-being of all member states. He said that the Caribbean community is constantly challenged by the changing international situation and called for a redoubling of efforts to ensure stable economies. Speaking more recently, the head of state described the CSME as the single most important, most ambitious project of the community in 44 years. Hence, he has attached great significance to it and its success, noting that it would be difficult for the states to exist as a community without it.
It affects our single domestic space, it affects single internet and communication space, it affects our single security space, it affects everything. And to the extent that CSME doesn't work well, it means that the community will fail to achieve its objective. We have been at it for a very long time, and I feel that part of the problem is the sheer size of the community. It's over 3,000 kilometers between Nassau and Paramaribo, and transportation has always been a big problem. Traditionally, the Caribbean has been penetrated by commodities, particularly in the hospitality industry from the bigger countries, United States, United Kingdom, Canada. And because of our plantation economies, we never really developed a sufficiently wide base for local produce.
The president expressed confidence that once the CSME progresses, the Caribbean community would become a very prosperous state. But he noted that geographical and cultural barriers must be overcome, and once this happens, communication, transportation, and production would foster greater prosperity for the member states.
The barriers are not insuperable, we need to remove what I call the non-tariff barriers, that is, bureaucrats putting obstacles in the way of imports from other countries. We need to ensure that our civil servants at the level of customs, at the level of the port authorities, are more appreciative. We're not asking them to break rules, but we're asking them to be aware of the need to move much more quickly to develop this single market and economy.
President Granger also described the CSME as the CARICOM's best response to changes in traditional European markets, growing economic liberalization, and the emergence of additional economic blocs. Leadership will, the head of state noted, must be infused at the level of the bureaucrats, and this direction must come from the top to let politicians know that all the member states in the region constitute one body and there is no leaving the path created 44 years ago. The CSME, especially given the present uncertainties facing the region's international relations, must be accelerated in order to create a single economic space, the President pointed out.
The CSME is the community's best response to the inevitable changes in its traditional markets in Europe. It's our response to the prevalence of economic liberalization, and it's our response to the emergence of these huge economic blocs. The CSME is still the best vehicle to allow small states to compete in the global economy while promoting economic and social development. The CSME is the most ambitious project attempted by the community. It must not become our most ambiguous.
The CSME, once accelerated, will lead to the creation of a single economic space in the region, thus allowing the free movement of goods with the region and strengthening food security of the rising food import bill, which currently stands at US $4 billion. President Granger described this as a notorious indictment of the region's inability to promote investment and stimulate intra-regional trade of commodities. CARICOM's food insecurity must be reversed if the Caribbean is to survive. In light of this, the head of state said that Guyana's farmers can contribute to regional food security by increasing agricultural output. The Caribbean, given its size, were it a state, would be larger than Sweden, and it is within this context that President Granger continues to advocate for states within the regional grouping to consume what is produced to overcome the problem of food security.
What is the point of importing $4 billion worth of commodities when we could produce those commodities, when we could employ people from the Caribbean? So food security is not a pipe dream, it is not a notion, it is something that we can make happen, but we have to overcome, again, I must return to the question about cultural preferences. There is not any real argument that would suggest that Demerara sugar from Mauritius is necessarily superior to Demerara sugar from Demerara, for example. And if we look at all of the commodities, I am very confident that we'll be able to assure the citizens of the Caribbean that in the event of any economic crisis, we can feed them. Guyana has lands, we can produce every avocado, every fish, every breadfruit that is needed in the rest of the Caribbean.
President Granger, during a visit to the Santa Fe mega farm located in the North Rupununi, Upper Takatu, Upper Essequibo region, Region 9, in June 2016 with Barbados Prime Minister Mr. Frundell Stewart, extended an invitation to Barbadian entrepreneurs, urging them to combine their product with those available in Guyana as part of a broader Caribbean project aimed at developing the countries for the citizens. The President said that the door is open since Guyana has the land space, and once there are investments and expertise, the countries can become as prosperous as any other part of the world. Prime Minister Stewart, while acknowledging the invitation, said that Guyana is definitely open for business and investments in agriculture, and that the success of the Santa Fe farm can serve as a model for other investors from other parts of the Caribbean and further afield to get on board. The Santa Fe farm spans a total of 29,000 acres of arable lands in the North Rupununi. It represents a thriving agriculture business venture which is a major investment by prominent Barbadian investor Sir Kiffin Simpson in Guyana's agriculture sector. Progress will be realized faster, Mr. Granger said, once the countries overcome their infatuation with foreign foods and accept that the region as a whole can feed itself and export commodities to other parts of the world. During the 37th regular meeting of the heads of government of the Caribbean community in July 2016, President Granger called on regional leaders to invest in Guyana, including investing in the country's vast agricultural potential. He noted that the countries of the Caribbean have the capital, while Guyana has the land and fresh water. The president at the time said there is no reason why member states should not engage in a partnership aimed at increasing agricultural output to help achieve food security in the Caribbean. President Granger has said that Guyana can play a meaningful role in becoming the rice bowl and vegetable basket of the Caribbean, and envisions the country playing this role through investment, infrastructure, information, and innovation in agriculture. This has been Government in Action. I am Stacey Carmichael. Join us again next week for another edition.